Punjabi Hari Gopi Janavala Giri Varadari Gopi Janavala Giri Varadari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadari 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 Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Shodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Shri Radhe Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Shri Radhe Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Shri Radhe Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai, Gantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Go Premanandi.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I am now reading from the Lilamrita.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Below the logo were the following lines, edited and found under the direct order of His Divine Grace, Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada by Mr. Abhay Charan De. Abhay had already gained some printing experience in connection with his business, and after completing the manuscript, he bought it to Saraswati Press, the best printers in Bengal. He also hired an agent, Calcutta's prestigious booksellers Thacker, Spring and Company, who would take responsibility for distributing the journal to bookstores and would take responsibility and for distributing the journal to bookstores and libraries, including the outlets in several foreign countries. But when he went to buy paper, he met the government restrictions. Because of the war and subsequent paper shortage, they wanted to see what he had written in terms of national needs. During this time of the world crisis, an ordinary citizen's religious newspaper was hardly top priority. Oboe's request for paper was perfunctorily denied, but he persisted. He appealed that using paper to print the teachings of personality of Godhead was not a waste and not ultimately in the present troubled atmosphere. Untimely in the present troubled atmosphere. Finally, he obtained permission to print his first edition, Back to Godhead, a 44-page publication. Abhay Charan greeted his readers by defining his motto, Godhead is light, nescience is darkness. When one man forgets that he is the son of Godhead and identified himself with the body, then he is in ignorance. He is like a man who is very concerned with the automobile mechanism, yet with no knowledge of the driver. The defect of the present day civilization is just like that. This is actually the civilization of nescience or illusion, and therefore civilization has been turned on into militarization. Everyone is fully concerned with the comforts of the body and everything related to the body, and no one is concerned with the spirit that moves the body, although even a boy can realize the motor car mechanism has little value if there is no driver in the car. The dangerous ignorance of humanity is a gross nescience and created a dangerous civilization in the form of militarization. The militarization, which in softer language is nationalization, is an external barrier to understanding human relations. There is no meaning in a fight where the parties do fight only for the matter of different colored dresses. There must be, therefore, an understanding of human relation without any consideration of the bodily designation or colored dresses. Back to Godhead is a feeble attempt by the undersigned under the direction of His Divine Grace, Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, the celebrated founder and organizer of Gaudiya Math activities, just to bring up a real relation to humanity with central relation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That there is a great and urgent need for a literature like this is keenly felt by the leaders of all countries, and the following statement will help much in the procedure. So, Prabhuji, I'm stopping here. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Sarvasastra Piyusha Sarvavedaika Satvala Sarvasarantara Nadya Sabalaikaika Trikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths. You are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Shrimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kali Dvanto Tita Ditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Premava Shaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishna Namostame. I bow down to you who is supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone, for you are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguru Mamahadana Manistaraka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asaru Saruta Dayin Nati Nishoshata Kara Hanamanjagata Chinmam Premda Hitkandayospara. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are reading from Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 20, entitled Lord Vishnu's Appearance in the Sacrificial Arena, text number 5. Atakayam mimang vidvan avidya kama karma bihi arabdha iti naivasmin pratibhuto nishajjate. Word for word. Ata, therefore. Kayam, body. Imam, this. Vidvan, he who has knowledge. Avidya, by nations. Kama, desires. Karmabhi, and by activities. Arabdha, created. Iti, thus. Na, never. Eva, certainly. Asmin, to this body. Pratibhuta, one who knows. Anushajate, becomes addicted. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Those who are in full knowledge of the bodily conception of life, who know that this body is composed of nations, desires, and activities resulting from illusion, do not become addicted to the body. Purport. As stated in a previous verse, those with good intellect, sudhya, do not accept themselves to be the body. Being a creation of nations, the body has two types of activities. In the bodily conception, when we think that sense gratification will help us, we are in illusion. Another kind of illusion is to think that one will become happy by trying to satisfy the desires that arise from the illusory body, or by attaining elevation to the higher planetary systems, or by performing various types of Vedic rituals. This is all illusion. Similarly, material activities performed for political emancipation and social and humanitarian activities performed with an idea that people of the world will be happy are also illusory, because the basic principle is the bodily conception, which is illusory. Whatever we desire or perform under the bodily conception is all illusion. In other words, Lord Vishnu informed Prithu Maharaj that although the sacrificial performance set an example for ordinary people, there was no need for such sacrificial performances as far as his personal self was concerned, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 2:45. Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna Nidvandvo Nityasattvasto Niyogakshema Admavan. The Vedas mainly deal with the subject of the three modes of material nature. Rise above these modes, O Arjuna. Be transcendental to all of them. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. The ritualistic performances recommended in the Vedas mainly depend on the three modes of material nature. Consequently, Arjuna was advised to transcend the Vedic activities. The activities Arjuna was advised to perform were the transcendental activities of devotional service. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Korochi Vachalam Pangun Lagate Gurum Yakripata Maham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So there is a big difference here between those who are in full knowledge of the bodily conception of life and those who are in the bodily conception of life. So one who is in the bodily conception of life obviously has no knowledge of the bodily conception of life because they think that they are the body, that they are the mind. And in that way, there's no difference between themselves and their body. So just like one, if one has lived all their life in a salt mine, all they would have tasted their whole life is salt. They won't know any difference. There's one friend of Krishna in the North Shore in Auckland. He's a alternative medical practitioner his name is Prashant. And he has, in his surgery, he has a one room which is completely lined. The whole walls and ceiling is lined with pink Himalayan salt. And you go in that room and all you can do is taste salt. So one who is habituated to tasting salt, they won't taste anything else. But as soon as one comes out of the salt mine, then one can actually taste, oh, there's something different. There's a different flavor. So many other flavors that one can taste apart from salt. So similarly, one who is in the bodily conception of life, they will know nothing beyond the body, beyond the mind, beyond the senses. But one who has knowledge of the bodily conception of life, then it means that they must understand that they are different from the body, that they are different from the mind. And therefore, if one understands that they are different from the body and different from the mind, then they can break the addiction to the body. We're hearing today that one who is in the bodily conception of life becomes addicted to the body. In other words, they become addicted to their senses, to gratifying their senses. Krishna explains in the end of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudramapa pravisanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashamti matnoti nakama kami. Krishna says that a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter just like the rivers into the ocean, which is always being filled, but remains still, can alone achieve peace, and not the person who strives to satisfy such desires. I remember in my the beginning days of my Krishna consciousness, reading this verse, it was really captivating for me. That well, first of all, it's a very poetic verse. The Sanskrit is very beautifully composed. The translation is very poetic, gives the wonderful analogy about the river flowing into the ocean, but the ocean doesn't increase in volume just because the river is flowing into it. But it was really enlightening for me to hear this concept that because desires come into the mind, you don't have to try and fulfill them. This is like revolutionary. Because in the bodily conception of life, you have a desire, something comes into your mind, and because it's in my mind, it must mean that I want it and I need it and I should fulfill it. And that's what actually gets us into so much trouble. You know, that we confuse our wants with our needs. There's no distinction between them. So therefore, just because a desire or a thought comes into our mind does not mean that we have to try and strive to fulfill that desire. Actually, in mode of goodness, living means to think before you act. So if a desire comes into the mind, you know, we should contemplate, you know, should I perform this activity? If I do this activity, if I fulfill that desire, what is the reaction going to, what is the consequence going to be? Srila Prabhupada explains in today's purport that there are, one in the bodily conception of life, there are two types of activities. One thinks that sense gratification will make him happy. And Prabhupada points out that that is illusion. You know, that the only way the conditioned soul knows how to try and squeeze some happiness out of this material world is to try to engage the senses with their sense objects. Unfortunately, this deepens one's illusion, since one feels a sense of happiness, but it's not real happiness. It's illusory because it's in relation to the body. And the second illusion, Srila Prabhupada points out, is this one of trying to become happy by satisfying our desires. And Krishna nicely explained in that that verse at the end of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita that a person who tries to satisfy their desires, you know, can never achieve peace. But the person who can refrain, you know, from trying to fulfill those desires, only he can achieve peace. In the fifth canto, fifth chapter, text 8, Srimad Bhagavatam, Rishabdev, he explains, he says, Punsak striyomitini bhavmetam, Tayomito hridaya grantimahu, atoke grihakshetra sutapta vataya janasya mahoya mahamameti. He says that the attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases one's life's illusions and thinks in terms of I and mine. So this bodily conception of life, if one is in the bodily conception of life, then they want to try to squeeze happiness out of sense gratificatory activities. And that the ultimate sensual experience for the conditioned soul is sex life. But according to this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear that through the process of sex life, it just increases one's illusions, increases life's illusions. And one becomes even more strongly bound to the bodily concept of life. Srila Prabhupada makes a very wonderful statement at the end of the purport to that verse. He says that sometimes it is found amongst exalted personalities like Lord Brahma that the wife and children are not a cause of bondage. On the contrary, the wife actually helps further spiritual life and liberation. Nonetheless, most people are bound by the knots of the material marital relationship, and consequently they forget their relationship with Krishna. So this is the difference between a grihamedi and a grihasta. And actually a grihasta is a very exalted position. One who actually follows the rules and regulations of the grihasta ashram is very exalted, because it takes intense mind and sense control. As the expression goes, it's difficult to fast on a fast day, but it's even more difficult when you're fasting and standing next to the fridge. So the Grihastha ashram is like fasting while standing next to the fridge. So anyone who can properly execute the rules and regulations of the Grihastha ashram, I take my hat off to. They're very, very exalted personalities. And actually, this is the difference between the Grihamedis and the Grihastas. The Grihamedis, they deepen their existence in material illusion, but the Grihastas, they enter the ashram in the mood of purification, in the mood of wanting to become purified of illusion, in the mood of wanting to become purified of the bodily conception of life. And therefore, they make tangible spiritual advancement. So I just wanted to finish with a few words about the glorification of Abhiram Thakur, since it's his disappearance day today. So Abhiram Thakur is a very intimate associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In Goloka Vrindavan, Abhiram Thakur is Sridham, the cowherd boyfriend of Krishna. And as the story goes, that one time the cowherd boys were playing hide and seek in the forest in Vrindavan. And Krishna and Balaram, they had a desire to go to Navadvip to perform their leela as Gaur Nitai. And so they got all the cowherd boys and they went and performed their pastimes in Navadvip. But unfortunately, Sridham got left behind. And Sridham was looking for the cowherd boys. He couldn't find Krishna and Balaram anywhere. And while Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda were performing their Leela, they realized, oh, where's Sri Dharma? And they realized that they'd forgotten about Sri Dharma. So Lord Nityananda, he went back to Vrindavan in his Nityananda Lord form as Nitai, and found Sri Dharma looking for the cowherd boys. And Nitai, he told Sri Dharma, you've been left behind. Please come and join us in our pastimes in Navadvip. And Sri Dharma, he said, actually Nitai explained to him that, yes, I am Balaram. But Sri Dharma didn't believe him. He said, you're only half the size of Balaram. Because in Kali Yuga, the size of the body is reduced as everything. So Nitai said to Sri Dharma, if you run away from me. And if within 3 paces, I can't catch you, then you'll know that I'm not Balaram. So Sri Dharma, he started running, and within 3 paces, Lord Nityananda grabbed hold of him. And Sri Dharma was like, okay, all right, I'll come. But Sri Dharma had some resentment towards Krishna and Balaram because they had left him behind. So anyway, Sri Dharma, when he entered the pastimes of Gaura Nitai, he took the form of Abhiram Thakur. And it's described that when any stone that Abhiram Thakur would offer obeisances to, if it wasn't a Shalagram Shila, it would crack. The stone would crack. Abhiram Thakur had a very famous whip, which was called Jai Mangala. And this whip, when it was touched or when it was struck on someone's body, they would immediately manifest symptoms of love of God. It's described how Srinivasacharya, as a young boy, went to visit Abhiram Thakur. And Abhiram Thakur struck him 3 times with this whip, Jai Mangala. And Srinivasacharya was on the floor, and completely manifesting Krishna prema, ecstatic symptoms of shivering and crying, tears shooting from his eyes. And Abhiram Thakur's wife, Malini, she said to Abhiram Thakur, please don't hit him anymore. He's just a young boy. So in this way, this is how Abhiram Thakur showed his mercy to Srinivasacharya. Okay, I'll stop there and ask if there's any questions or comments from listeners.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the very nice class, although very short. And you have very nicely pointed out in the beginning that the difference between the conception of life based on material level and based on spiritual level, what is the difference exactly? And particularly a person working on the bodily level is always concerned to bring happiness for himself and also for others based on the sense gratification. And a spiritual person, on the other hand, knows what are the limitations of that. And that's why he is not confused about the about the purpose of life, as against a person based on sense gratification, because he thinks that by satisfying his senses and also his desire to satisfy the senses will ultimately bring his happiness. And he is really an illusion, because he doesn't know the real purpose, that by sense gratification one can never achieve happiness ultimately. And you have also nicely pointed out the difference between a grihomedi and a grihosto, because in a grihosto life, a grihosto is control his senses, and he is utilizing his activities in day-to-day life or prescribed duties to satisfy ultimately to satisfy the senses of the Lord. And by his restriction, while he is discharging his duty as in the family life, he is also taking the help from his wife towards his progress in spiritual happiness and spiritual goal, as against the grihomedi, who is more concerned about sense gratification. And this way he is more misdirected about the goal of human life. So this is what I have understood. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for your nice class. If anybody else has any other thing to say, please make comment, and thank you.
Hare Krishna, Stamba Bhava, Prabhu. Thank you once again for your wonderful class, as always, with your very, very insightful points. I especially like that when you said, just because the mind tells us to do something, we need not do it. Just like a commercial or an advertisement on a television or something. Just because we see so many advertisements or just because we see so many things in the shop, it doesn't mean we just go and buy it. It is, and similarly, the mind also does an advertisement. So I like that. So, but just thinking, yeah, I know, it's, especially in my case, I should say it's really a challenge being like that. So there's always this thing of like regret, right? You think, oh, I got this bright idea in my mind, I didn't execute it, so I missed out on this. I regret. So, so how do I get over such such feelings? Yeah. Because so we think, oh, this is a wonderful idea, or this I should have executed this, I should have done this as per my idea in my mind. I missed out. So yeah, how do I get over such feelings? So just wanted your thoughts on that problem.
Well, we can't turn back the hands of time. Yeah. One thing that really helps in these things, if we have good ideas, is if we reveal our mind to someone. You know, if we have someone, either like a mentor or someone we look up to, someone we respect, you know, and we get a second opinion. If do you think this is a good idea, and do you think I should follow through with it? You know, because yeah, if we have good ideas and they just stay within the mind, then like you said, you know, nothing happens, and then we may regret not doing them, not trying to fulfill them. So yeah, it's always my Gurudev says that, you know, bhakti is a culture of guidance. You know, no matter how advanced we become in bhakti, we should always have someone that even a friend, you know, that we can reveal our mind to. It's revealing our mind in confidence means to there's two sides to that. There's how to overcome obstacles in devotional service and how to progress, how to make advancements. So this is an authorized way an authorized way also of developing loving relationships. Was one of the 6 loving exchanges mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Upadeshamrita. So it's it's very, very important, actually, if we can get into the habit of trying to reveal our minds to someone that we trust. Yeah, one senior Vaishnava once said to me, always have a friend in Krishna consciousness that you can take criticism from, or that will, his motivation is to actually help you. So yes, does that help at all, Prabhu?
Thank you, Prabhu. No, that's really good. No, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so if there's nothing else, maybe we can stop there.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably it appears there is no other person to make a comment. So thank you very much for the nice class. Vancha kalpotarubhyascha
Kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
namo namaha.
Bhaktabinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Bol.
Stamba Bhava Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.